Julia, I love the phrase that the tooth fairy is out of business this lockdown.
They're on furlough.
Yeah, they're on furlough, exactly. ask Boris for £2.70 because 3 of your children have lost their lower tooth.
I quite like the other response was, do you know how many teeth there are in this household?
That's perhaps a goal for next January, is to try and walk 500 miles.
You know, with some of my tutoring wins is that this 11-year-old Red said in a story today.
I think that there's only so many times you can come back from a run and expect your whole family to go, yeah!
That's what we're here for, Rose.
Welcome to the Qualified Tutor Podcast. I'm your host, Ludo Miller, and I'll be interviewing tutors and thought leaders from across the tutoring landscape to inspire, inform, and motivate you to become the best tutor you can be. The Qualified Tutor community is a safe and supportive space for tutors who love to learn and grow. We offer training, resources, ideas, and a chance to connect with like-minded tutors. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes.
Welcome to this week's podcast, where we're doing things slightly differently. I feel like I say that almost every week, but that's just the varied nature of the Qualified Tutor podcast. So welcome everyone. This week we will be celebrating the end of Red January, in which QT entered their first team ever. Many thanks to our very own Amanda Cremona, who's with us tonight, along with Julia Silver, Adrian Conway, and Rose Matthews. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks.
Well,
Very good. So this podcast will just be a kind of a summary of what we've learned from Red January and how it's helped us get through this toughest of ever January month, and also leading into the community themes that have been present in the Qualified Tutor community this month. So in January, the theme was, perhaps aptly, it was mental health, and looking at how we can spot that in our tutors, in our students, and how we can improve, what kind of strategies we have for that. And then leading into February's theme, which will be special educational needs and disabilities. So very good to have Amanda here with us as well for that. So really, coming off the back of a really uplifting workshop one of this newest cohort that we have, Julia, I'd like to kind of start with you here, which has been Red January. It might not have been something that you've come across before. What have you learned in this Red January?
Well, my January was very intense because all the kids were home for remote schooling, and we've been growing so much in Qualified Tutor, and the two things together have collided, especially on those snow days, to make for some really, really intense times. But posting photos and sharing thoughts about supporting each other's mental health made me feel part of a community and really, really encouraged and supported. So when Rose celebrated her 5K run, we sort of all cheered you, didn't we? And you did force me out for a walk that day. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. I think I haven't put the kilometers in, but we've definitely done a lot of dancing in my kitchen.
Oh yeah. In fact, perhaps, Amanda, that would be a brilliant time for you to jump in. I really been inspired by some of your quotes about this kitchen is a kitchen for dancing, I believe is one of them.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the other kitchen dancing quote was?
Oh, I forget now, but yeah, I sent them through to you, didn't I? But we've always done dancing in the kitchen, and particularly when my kids were little. But yeah, it's something that anybody can do anytime, isn't it? You just put Alexa on and play a song that, depending on your mood. But it was really great for us to share some of our songs as well that we liked. The Proclaimers, I think, came from Julia, didn't it?
We did that again tonight, marching around.
Did you? It was great. It was great.
Miles,
Yeah,
but it was fun.
That's perhaps a goal for next January, is to try and walk 500 miles.
Have I told you about the Monster Mash?
No.
We do
please
turn all the lights off and run about doing the Monster Mash. Now you know everything.
Yeah. But Amanda, I'm sure you share kind of similar feelings to Julia. How did being part of the community help with Red January this
No,
month?
really great. I mean, I think that I've done Red January a couple of times now, and I think being part of a community and doing it with other people just keeps you motivated. And like you said, being able to share when you have those wins, and like Rose did, and with her glass of whatever you were drinking, Rose.
It was a GMT, wasn't it?
It was, it was really lovely, and I think it's really nice when you've got an achievement, because you want to share it with people, don't you? You want to do that. I wish I'd been brave enough to do some of the yoga vids that you did, Rose. They were fab.
They were fun to make. Yeah, that's the first time I've done that.
Yeah. Not only has Red January helped us to get out, it's helped Rose become a video editor and creator. Those videos are still up on Vimeo, I think, if you want to have a look. Yeah. So Rose, what were your goals for January, and did you manage to reach them?
So I set myself what I thought was quite an ambitious goal of running 10k, because I started running only last year. So this was quite a big goal for me, and I think this was something I've been thinking about for quite a long time, but not had been able to execute. And I think Red January has definitely helped me do that, because as you've all said, the motivation, the community feeling definitely encouraged me to do that, and it was nice to have somewhere to share the progress, and the encouragement was just a really great way of helping me do that. So.
I think that there's only so many times you can come back from a run and expect your whole family to go, yeah.
That's what we're here for, Rose.
Yeah.
But I feel really bad because I just halved your
Yeah.
achievement. I said 5 when it was 10. Sorry.
What you should have done, Rose, is get the family to line up and sort of clap you in, as you ran down, and hold a ribbon out for you to run.
Pick a tape.
That was really big achievement. It was brilliant.
No, it is.
Good.
No, I think that particularly now, particularly with the situation that we're in nationally, I think that those are sort of achievements, and those small goals. Actually, I mean, it's not a small goal; it's a big goal, isn't it? But those things that we do just mean all the difference, don't they? And I think it's so important just to celebrate. And I think one of the things about lockdown is, one of the things for me is that it makes you really appreciate those smaller things, those more personal things, those family things, as the community of your family, and just celebrate those little bits that you do, eating healthier or getting more exercise, whatever it might be, but you celebrate them so much more, don't you? You appreciate them.
Yeah, definitely.
Think about them and to appreciate them.
One of the things I've just thinking about, the last month and Red January and those sort of things. But one of the things I've really tried to do, because I work at home all the time, so lockdown for me is not just about the last few months. It's about it feels like it's the norm to me, working at home. But one of the things I've tried to do, with limited success, I think, is to just at certain times just put things on hold and say, right, I'm going to do a good 2-hour walk, or I'm just going to go out now. I'm just going to leave my desk and just go and do that. And I've tried to do that. And you feel so much, the idea beforehand, you think, oh, I've got this to do and I've got that to do and I need to finish that. But actually, when you do it and you come back, you feel so much better, don't you?
Absolutely.
You're prepared then. You're ready to take on more, really. It's probably quite an efficient way of working in many ways.
Yeah. I suppose it's about scheduling in sort of those breaks as well, isn't it? So that you do get up from the computer or get up from your desk and move about. And it's sort of, sometimes you have to purposely do that.
In fact, Amanda, I've been so busy this January that I've not even had time to take my Christmas hat off.
Shall we explain the hats before we move on to talking about next month?
Well, it's interesting actually, because podcast listeners won't be able to see that we're all sitting in rather nice and slightly, may I add, slightly differently shaped on head hats. I've gone for the rolled up look, and then there's also the kind of the pushback look, and then Adrian's just gone for the Christmas hat look. But yeah, for those listening, do be assured that we're all sitting here in funny hats. But no, Julia, absolutely right. What this kind of feeds in very well with Red January, and very well with our community team. How do you think those two have worked together?
I think Amanda's the linchpin, isn't it? Because you started us off on the mental health conversation, and now you're going to follow us through onto the SEND conversation. So I think that it's really you that's sort of taking the lead over here, which has been so lovely for us, because we've been working together within the qualified tutor community for quite a while now, because you came and you found us as a quality mark for tutoring.
Sure.
You've had this opportunity, you've taken the opportunity to contribute. And so now you're going to be facilitating for our courses going forward, which is so lovely. And it means that we're able to support more tutors. So we know that tutors struggle working with students with SEND. I'll share with you my recent experience in just a second. And what we've been able to do over here is firstly talk about mental health and how to support students with mental health. And now we're moving on to talk about how to support students with special educational needs. So this week in the community, Ludo asked the question about how we support students with dyslexia. And the response that you has had about 16 replies since last time I looked. So there was certainly something that sort of caught people's attention. Do you want to sort of comment on that?
I think people aren't trained in it necessarily. You can be in a school, and the teaching assistants, I mean, I've worked with numerous teaching assistants that have just been sort of plonked in the job, if you like, and been expected to know what to do with this child, and they've not had the training. And it's really important to really make the most of it, is to have some kind of training. And we all have a sort of, when you work in education, you have a basic idea of certain needs and certain things, but the actual ins and outs of what you can do. I mean, it was fascinating when Ludo asked a question on the thread yesterday, and I sent him a piece of organisational planning type of thing, and he used it yesterday, I believe. And it helped him with his lesson that afternoon. And I just think some people are nervous of it. Some people are worried because they don't know how to handle something, and they don't. And if you're a tutor, you want to do your best. You want to get the best out of your students as well. I think one piece of advice I would always say is don't be afraid to ask. I think that is absolutely key. If you're not sure, particularly if you can get into the QT community, there's quite a few people now, quite recently as well, that are really knowledgeable on the SEND things, and just ask.
I think you're right, Amanda. I think particularly in tutoring, I think things are getting better within schools, but I think within tutoring, it's experience, isn't it? That's your training, really, in many cases. And in order to train and in order to be experienced, you need to be exposed to those SEND children. I think that can be quite daunting for people to start off with, because I think one of the things about SEND is there's such a range of SEND that people feel that they can't even scratch the surface of it. But I think your advice is speak to somebody who can give you practical advice, actually, the things that you can physically do, like you're talking to Ludo there and giving him advice about, working with a child. I think those sorts of things just build up your experience so much more rapidly, because you see it working, you see the impact of it.
No, absolutely. And I think that's the other thing, working with SEND children, you have small wins, but they're sort of, but each time, if you're working correctly with that child, you can just get those little things, and it's great. I think the one area that people I've realize with people working online is being a bit concerned with sort of an ADHD kind of child from the behavior. How am I going to keep them concentrating? How am I going to keep them focused and things like that? So, and it just takes a bit of extra planning. It's doable. You know, you might have to shorten your lesson, or you put in movement breaks, which I do a lot. You know, and you keep the pace moving. You know, you can't expect a child that's got those kind of difficulties to sit for an hour's tuition on one thing.
And in many ways, it's the planning, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
as you mentioned there, that, you know, you plan, as long as you're aware of those activity breaks, you know, and as long as you build those in, that becomes part of the lesson. So it just becomes planned. And once you've got that strategy in your toolkit, then you're good to go, really, aren't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, once you've conquered it one time, you can do it time and time again. And I think the other thing about SEND is that you mentioned there is about, you know, it's small rewards, but aren't those rewards so much more gratifying and meaningful? Yeah, absolutely. You know, definitely.
I mean, I can, because Ludo mentioned to me earlier about going into the tutoring wins and sort of putting bits, and I'm like, yeah, but my, you know, with some of my tutoring wins is that this 11-year-old Red said in a story today, you know, I was jumping up and down because he did it, because I've spent, you know, days just repetition, and all of a sudden he transferred the skill from just in an isolated sort of flashcard format to in a book, and it was like, whoa, you know, but to sort of put that on a tutoring win for other people, that go like, but it was a really big deal.
But it is a really big deal, because actually what we're talking about, these small wins add up to bigger wins. And actually those, for that child, it's life-changing.
Yeah,
you know, what's
definitely.
it is. That tutoring session is going to be life-changing for them.
Yeah. No, particularly for somebody that's 11 and can't read. And, you know, if we can get him there, it will be life-changing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience, Rose?
I haven't, no, which is maybe why I'm keeping quite quiet. But what I would say is that the one amazing thing about the QT community is that, as a slightly newer tutor with not much experience in SEND, it's kind of amazing that we can hear from people like you that have loads of experience and are kind of experts in the area. So I'm quite excited to kind of learn lots of new things over the next month.
I had a win this week with a special educational needs student. I couldn't work with her. I got on very well with her and we had lovely sessions, but I knew I wasn't the right person. So I reached out to you, Amanda, and we discussed the kind of conversations I could have with a mum. And then I spoke to a local specialist in my area who I thought might want to work with her. And she gave me the details of an ed psych who's actually connected to a charity who can really draw down lots of support for this child. So I handed the child over to a support system that will tie back into her school and really make sure that she gets the input that she needs. That's going to make a big change for her. She's year 4, so not being able to read and write in year 4 is, you know, she needs the input right now. And so, you know, I passed up the work, and I was really, really proud of the fact that she's going to get the support that she needs. And thank you for helping me to sort of to signpost that family, to sort of, because what we were looking at there, weren't we? We were looking at a combination of different diagnoses all combining together. And what was happening was that the one was affecting the other. Don't want to go into too much detail, but it's definitely turned out that she will be signposted to get the support that she's going to need going forward.
Can I ask you there that an important thing that you said there was that you knew that you weren't the right person for her, and actually that, you know, for many people, you know, that would be seen as a defeat almost. It would be seen as, you know, that you've failed them, and the temptation for many tutors and many people in teaching as well is that you just carry on regardless. You just continue and you keep going because you've got to make it work. So what was it that made you understand that you were not the right person for that child? Well,
really, it was a sense of responsibility. You know, if the family investing in this time, then it should be with a person who's going to really be as precise as possible and making sure the student gets what she needs. But as you're asking it to me now, it just seems obvious that I also don't tutor GCSE biology. Do you know what I mean? It's not my specialism. That's totally legitimate. As tutors, we're all specialists.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Just sort of picking. I mean, my one, if I get a a parent asking for primary tuition, and I'm okay with maths to a point, but it's not my specialism, and I don't feel parent is getting value for money, if you like, if that's the right way of sort of saying it, by saying, yes, I can do bits, but actually this is my forte. And I'm now very open. If I have a parent that sort of comes on this, I'm fine with sort of little ones maths, but it's not my thing.
I think that you do yourself such a service as a professional when you say no to the right things. Do you know what I mean? Because then you get known for having integrity, and that's going to be part of building up your professionalism as a tutor.
It does take courage to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It's amazing how well this links back to the podcast we had with Neil Calmedo last year, who said that if your student is not the right person for you, then direct them to someone who can help them.
Like a pair of shoes.
And
Ludo.
I think that's really important.
Do you know what? When you're talking about shoes, so the mother, when I was sort of speaking to her and supporting to her, she said that she tried lots of different people over the years. And I said to her, but that's fine, because it's a little bit like shoes, you grow out of them. You can grow out of a tutor and need a different type of tutor at different times. That's totally legitimate also. But these are new things to think about. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I think that does have to come from the tutor, possibly more from the parent, because sometimes the parent doesn't really know. But it needs to come, actually, I've got them to where I can take them. Maybe they need this or that or whatever, but it depends, doesn't it?
That's right.
One of the things we talk about in QT in the Relationship Matters module is about building that relationship, and it strikes me, just as Amanda was talking there, that relationship for SEND children is so much more key than any other child, really. To have that relationship, that one-to-one relationship, that closeness, that bond,
definitely,
is so much more important. And they're more reliant on that relationship as well, aren't they? And it, in many ways, I'm sort of realizing how the responsibility of it, how big a responsibility it is for SEN, well, for any child, but particularly for SEND.
Yeah, no, definitely. And and I suppose it's that trust, isn't it? Because sometimes, particularly if you've got an older child that has really struggled through school, and actually their trust is on the floor, and that's really, it's really sad, but it does happen, and then you get them, and building that, just building that relationship is really, really, really key. I think
I'm just talking from a mainstream sort of perspective, really. That what you find with SENDs, that the children are aware of it, themselves, and that it manifests itself in different ways. And
absolutely,
if the provision for that child isn't appropriate, then it couldn't quite often manifest itself as poor behaviour.
Always, usually, definitely.
And as a tutor, what you've got to do, working one-to-one, is you've got to unpick that learned behaviour, really, because quite often poor behaviour is a mask for other things. The child doesn't want to be seen to be failing.
They
mess around in the class and make, become the class clown. It means that in many ways, it's not attributed to their ability; it's attributed to the behaviour.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I found sort of more recently coming across some children is actually and it's quite sad, really, but the children that don't exhibit any kind of behaviour because of their difficulty sometimes are left a little bit. So then they more even more need some one-to-one help, because, you know, the children that have got the behaviour within a class, they demand that attention, you know, because you have to deal with it, because otherwise it disrupts the other 29 children in the class, or whatever the scenario may be. So they demand, so you have to give that, you know, whether you want to or not, it demands it. Whereas, you know, the one that's in the class just plodding, sitting quietly, everything else, but actually isn't handing in the writing because he can't keep up, or, you know, isn't being able to do this, or is getting strong because he can't keep up, or whatever. It's those that are just quietly under the radar that actually just get sort of left a little bit, and actually sometimes their potential is up here. You know, and you know, and that's where tutoring can really make a difference.
That's right. That's exactly where tutoring can really make a difference. So let's think about what we're going to talk about on the community over the next 4 weeks. We've got some workshops lined up, and some podcasts with some specialists, and we're really going to try to make it as engaging as possible to really pique tutors' interest, so that if they decide to become specialists, we can signpost them to know where to go and get further training. And if it's just that they're working with a student who is struggling in a specific area, we'll give you the skills to make a difference and to support them. We're really, really lucky to have so many specialists in our community who share so generously, and we enjoy supporting each other. So if you would like to join us in the Qualified Tutor community, that's all you need to put in: qualifiedtutorcommunity.org, and it's free to join, and just request access and we'll let you in straight away. And then you can sort of get busy making friends and following the conversations that we're having. We really love to learn from every tutor, and so if you think that you benefit, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you to Amanda, to Rose, to Adrian, to Ludo for our fantastic red hats. We've had a great time in Red January, and we're going to continue growing and learning together this month, focusing on special educational needs and disabilities to really make a difference for all our students. Thanks everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
I'm going to go and put my hat away for another 330 days now.
Thanks for listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast, where tutors share their expertise to support the tutoring community. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org, or find it in the show notes below. We exist to connect, share, and learn with you, because tutoring is a small job that makes a big difference.